A scary Peppa Pig episode that never made it on TV. It was a perfectly normal morning in Peppa's house, but something felt different. The walls seemed to whisper secrets that only children could hear. Peppa woke up to find her family sitting at the breakfast table, their smiles too wide, their eyes too bright. "Good morning, Peppa," said Mummy Pig, her voice echoing strangely in the yellow kitchen. Daddy Pig's glasses reflected nothing, just empty darkness. George sat perfectly still, his favorite dinosaur toy staring with painted eyes that seemed to follow Peppa's every move. At playgroup, all of Peppa's friends were already there, standing in a perfect circle. They turned to look at her in perfect synchronization, their heads moving like clockwork dolls. "We've been waiting for you, Peppa," they said in unison. The playground equipment cast long shadows even though the sun was directly overhead. The slides stretched impossibly high into the gray sky, and the swings moved by themselves, creaking a lullaby that made Peppa's skin crawl. When it was time to go home, Peppa realized she couldn't remember how she got to playgroup. The path home seemed different, longer, with trees that bent toward her like grasping fingers. Her house appeared at the end of the street, but all the windows were dark except for one. Inside, her family was waiting at the dinner table, the same two wide smiles on their faces. "Welcome home, Peppa," they said together. "We've prepared your favorite meal." But when Peppa looked at her plate, she saw her own reflection staring back, trapped behind the porcelain surface, silently screaming for help. Scary Peppa Pig episode that never made it on TV. It was bedtime at the pig house. Peppa climbed up the purple ladder to her top bunk, while George settled into the bottom bed below. Their favorite toys were scattered around: the teddy bear, toy train, colorful blocks, and Mr. Dinosaur sitting quietly on the shelf. Mummy Pig tucked them both in with gentle kisses goodnight. The room fell into peaceful darkness as she closed the door. Outside, the moon cast gentle shadows through the bedroom window, but as the clock struck midnight, something began to change. George was the first to notice it. His beloved Mr. Dinosaur slowly turned its plastic head toward the bunk bed. The toy's painted eyes gleamed in the moonlight, no longer friendly. Peppa stirred as she heard a soft, scraping sound. Looking down, she saw the toy train beginning to move along its tracks, even though no one had wound it up. The little engine chugged forward, its tiny headlight casting eerie shadows on the walls. The teddy bear began to rock back and forth on its own. Its button eyes reflected the moonlight like tiny black mirrors, and its sewn-on smile seemed to have twisted into something sinister. George pulled his blanket up, watching in growing fear as more toys began to stir. The colorful blocks started stacking themselves into impossible towers. They moved with purpose, creating strange patterns that hurt to look at. The Jack-in-the-Box began to play its melody, but the tune was wrong, slower, deeper, filled with discordant notes. Peppa tried to call out to George, but her voice came out as barely a whisper. The toys seemed to sense their fear and began moving faster. The toy cars raced around the room in perfect circles, their wheels making no sound. George watched in horror as Mr. Dinosaur climbed down from the shelf, its plastic limbs moving with unnatural fluidity. The toy that had once brought him comfort now approached the bunk bed with predatory intent. Its painted smile had become a grimace. The room filled with the sound of toys coming to life, gears turning, springs bouncing, plastic parts clicking together. The friendly nursery rhyme from the music box became a haunting dirge that echoed from the walls. Peppa looked down at George and saw that his eyes had become glassy and distant. He was no longer looking at her with recognition, but with the same blank stare as the toys. His movements became jerky and mechanical. The toys formed a circle around the bunk bed, all facing inward with their artificial eyes fixed on Peppa. She realized with growing dread that she was the only one left who hadn't been changed. The room had become a prison of animated nightmares. As dawn approached, the toys slowly returned to their positions. But George remained motionless in his bottom bunk, his eyes still holding that glassy, toy-like stare. When Mummy and Daddy Pig came to wake them, they found only Peppa talking to her new toy brother, who never blinked or spoke, but always smiled that perfect painted smile.